The webinar is now broadcasting, coming to you live from the interwebs. Yes. How's everybody doing?
Man, doing great, man.
How are you guys doing? We got, you know, what's fun is if you, I don't know how you have your screens, but if you have the panelist window up on the side, this is kind of like a little quick thrill. You can see the attendees, you know, racing up, that number climbing, and that's always, you know, that's always good. It's always a good affirmational feedback loop that, you know, we're not wasting our time here trying to have these conversations, right, and nobody, you know, nobody attends, right? So
nobody's really
that's
listening.
Good. Glad everybody. Yeah, exactly. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Wait for a couple more minutes, then we'll kind of dive in. We got 110 of you so far. So glad to see you tuning in. Feel free to say hi and let us know. Adriana, good to see you. Glad to see you back again. Allison, lots of friends joining. Emily Hendricks, good to see you. Emily Knight.
Kind of like LeVar Burton used to do on Reading Rainbow or something, didn't he? Used to like
yes.
Say,
That's a good
Reading
throwback
Rainbow.
Right there.
Now you're talking
yeah,
about
no,
that's a blast from the past right there.
Huh?
I love
It's
that.
old school, man.
Reading Rainbow. I love it. That's fantastic.
Cool.
Of course, Gathan, you know, showing us all up with the horse virtual background, you know, that's good. Wes sporting the swag. I love that. Wes is easily, I think, in my opinion, got the best swag of any destination, hands down. I always love seeing what you come up with. Jill Kilgore, welcome. Glad to see you. Greetings from coastal Mississippi. Anna, thanks for tuning in. Glad to see you.
That's my buddy Kylie's in there, though. I see from Tupelo.
Oh, Tupelo.
She's one of my really good friends. That's my buddy.
I love it. 155 plus. This is good.
People.
Yes. Thanks again for tuning in. This is good. This is going to be a good conversation today. You know, I think it's such a good time, obviously, just to connect, see faces, even though, you know, this can feel still slightly disembodied. You know, we're still virtual. We're looking at a screen, but there is something of great value. I have gained a lot of comfort from seeing friends and smiling and laughing with each other, and you know, just continuing to help each other and lift each other up, encourage one another, offer ideas, and that's certainly what we're going to focus on today is kind of thinking about some ideas and inspiration, not only just what some of us are doing next week with National Travel and Tourism Week, but then even beyond. You know, certainly thinking ahead a little bit. Sarah Marshall, hi from Westchester County, New York. So glad you tuned in. Thanks, Sarah.
We've got a wide
Good
representation
stuff
today. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and
fantastic.
just jump in and then we can start the conversation. Hi again, everybody. I'm Becca Smith. I am the Senior Director of Marketing and Events for Connect Travel. Lovely to see all of you on the webinar today. I'm coming to you from Tallahassee, Florida, where it's currently, I think, 70. We're at 79 degrees now, but it's a lovely day, yet I'm inside for some reason. So I don't know why. But I wanted to just welcome you all. Make sure you use the Q&A function as you have questions. We're going to make sure we answer as many of those as possible. We have the chat function, which you're all utilizing right now. So great to see all the shout outs. So keep pushing those through. As a reminder, you can view all of the Connect Travel webinars, both the marketing and the travel trade side on our website. It's connecttravel.com and it's /webinars. We have everything on demand. We put them right up afterwards to make sure you share those with your colleagues. As Josh said, really the goal for these webinars is to keep building our community, sharing our ideas, supporting one another, and it's just really great to come together and have new outlook each week. So thank you so much to our panelists for being here this week. One other great way to stay connected I want to mention, I've been saying this kind of each time, is the travel vertical. It's a free weekly B2B newsletter. You can subscribe at thetravelvertical.com. You can also contact us, send any questions. It's a really great tool to stay engaged of what's kind of going on in the travel industry. Many of you reach out to us and we feature stories there. So please continue to do that. And a special shout out to Lori Farr. She is the editor of that. So she does a great job pulling that together. Moving on to Josh. Josh is our fantastic moderator during the next hour. But during the day, he leads the Vibrant Destination Accelerator team at Streetsense. If your destination is seeking support to accelerate its recovery, really you should reach out to Josh. He's wonderful, fabulous. We love having him. And so welcome back, Josh.
Thanks. Glad to be here. I feel like this is like becoming, quite comfortable now, right? We kick these things off. We've got friends and friendly faces and just, welcome in. I will just quickly introduce everybody that is tuning in. I'm really excited with Streetsense this week, put out a brand new resource that I think all of you would love. Certainly, helpful to your restaurants and bars inside your destination, but we put together a pandemic relaunch toolkit, and it covers a lot of really incredible things, and how to capital management, space design, thinking technologies on payment to delivery to all sorts of things, and it has been well received. So and that is just a gift. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Either send me an email, jcollins@streetsense.com, message me, Slack me, LinkedIn me, whatever you want to do. However you get me out, I'd be more than happy to get that to you today, because it'd be a great resource for you to share with your restaurants and bars in your destinations. But today, obviously, we are talking National Travel Tourism Week. That's a piece of it, but then continuing to kind of brainstorm, talk to each other, think about inspiring ways to connect with our audiences. What does that look like? Going into things around certainly even our visitor guides. What are we doing with that? How are we thinking about that? Does that change? Does it, just all that kind of stuff. And I feel honored to be here because these panelists today are not just good friends, but they're just some of the brightest ones. Seriously, I'm looking at the screen and I wish you could see from my screen, seeing Melissa's face, Wes's face, and Gathan's face. It just makes me smile. I really do. It's so good to see you guys. And Becca, you too, of course, I'm not leaving you out, but it's a gift to connect with you guys. So thank you for being here with us. It really does mean a lot. Why don't we, Gathan, why don't you just kick us off? Tell us, obviously, for those that are tuning in that don't know you, don't know how they couldn't know you by now, but they should, if they don't, where you're at, kind of what you're doing, and something that we can look forward to seeing from you.
Yeah, I'll start. So I'm Gathan Borden, work at VisitLEX, which is in Lexington, Kentucky. 13-year industry vet, so I've been around for a long time. Y'all see the horses behind me, so y'all can go play that Old Town Road song if you want to, with got the horses in the back joint, you know what I mean? But horse capital of the world here in Lexington, and so some of the stuff that we're doing, as you mentioned, like National Travel and Tourism Week, is we're kicking that off next week, and it's always been kind of different in Lexington. I was in Louisville for 8 years, and we did something completely different because we were member-based, and in Lexington we're non-member-based. So we kind of just, every year is a little bit different, but this year we've got a couple of initiatives. One is what we're calling a carry-out challenge, which is we created an Instagram story graphic that allows you to write on the graphic, where you can write in the block for 3 restaurants, and then you can also, beneath that, then write in the block 3 of your friends and tag your friends, and you just pass it along through the social media channel. So we did it for restaurants. We're doing the same thing for what's called the retail challenge, which is the same concept, but just tagging 3 retail outlets and tagging 3 of your friends, passing that along for the week. We had a meeting this morning. We're kind of working on some type of video where we can get some locals that kind of chime in and talk about what they're looking forward to, or what they miss about, Lexington, and what the travel industry can look like when it comes back. We're working on that video right now. And then we're also debuting a 1-800 number where it'll be the sounds of the bluegrass, where you'll be able to call a 1-800 number, and you'll be able to press a button and you'll hear all of the travel sounds of Lexington before you actually come and visit. So we're working on that as well for next week. So a lot of fun stuff we got planned for next week.
I love that. So what kind of sound, we call the 1-800 number, what are we going to listen to? That sounds incredible. First of all, what would we hear?
I will tell you, I'm a ask now and forgive later kind of guy. But two things I am kind of nervous about. We try to use some music from Tyler Childers, and we've got somebody doing My Old Kentucky Home, so we got to make sure we got some copyrights in place for that. But you'll get to hear Horse's Name. You'll get to hear bacon frying from one of our great chefs. You'll get to hear Horses Eating Carrots. You'll get to hear Call to the Post, which is at Keeneland, which is before the horses actually take off. So kind of those kind of sights and those kinds of sounds you get to hear next week.
That is fantastic. Sign me up. I'm going to be dialing in to listen to some bacon sizzle. That's for sure. That's fantastic. Well, Melissa, what introduce yourself. Tell those of us that are tuning in that may not be familiar with you, where you're from, and certainly, I know we all have different plans we do for National Travel and Tourism Week. Some do more than others, or whatever. But what are you excited about? What is your team working on right now in the midst of this pandemic?
Hi, everyone. Yes, Melissa Gogel with Visit Phoenix. I oversee marketing, tourism, and communications. I appreciate the opportunity today to actually put myself together a little bit. My poor team sees very casual Melissa every day lately. So it was nice to have a reason to kind of act a little normal today. So I appreciate that. We, in regards to National Tour and Travel Week, we haven't traditionally done a lot there. Typically what we've done is from a media relations standpoint. We use that opportunity in that week to engage local writers and influencers to kind of remind them of the importance of the travel industry. So that would have been something we would have done this year. Since we can't gather together with them personally, we're going to be reaching out to do a virtual hangout with that same group of people, and not only local writers and influencers, but also some drive market ones as well, since everybody believes that will be the first thing to come back and travel. And I think we're gonna do maybe a bingo game or something like that with them, just a fun way to engage them with the destination during that time. So that'll be our focus for next week. We will do some things on social as well to support U.S. Travel's efforts, kind of following their lead. And then other than that, we're just churning out maybe more content right now than we even have previously, just trying to think of new ways to engage people appropriately.
No, that's fantastic. Wes, thanks for joining us too. Good to see you. Like I said, good to see that Stockton shirt on, man. How are you doing? And catch us up. And what are you excited about, man?
I'm doing fantastic, and you can go to StocktonSouvenirs.com and get a shirt for yourself if you'd like. I'm the guy packing and shipping right now. So
Nice plug.
Anyway, we're doing good. We're staying busy. National Travel and Tourism Week has not always been a priority for us. Tourism, I don't even know if it's in the top 10 industries in our region. But this year, like Melissa, we would have had some sort of event. We would have had our Tourism Week event. We usually do it a week earlier with all of our stakeholders and partners to talk about our successes. And of course, we're not doing that. So we're going to translate some of the data that we're getting from Dean Runyon. This is the time of year we get our visitor spending numbers from Visit California, then we get our city level ones. And so I think it's a great time to take some of those numbers and share them on social media, especially when people are thinking, we know the restaurants are heavily impacted, but do we understand how much of our restaurant spending locally comes from visitors and not just locals? And so, and I think we may even see some of that, right? When restaurants reopen, they may not be as busy as they usually are because it's not only locals that support them. So anyway, we're going to take some of that data and integrate that into our social media. So we're looking forward. They're great numbers for 2019. So we're excited about that. We just did a Dear Stockton, We Miss You video. And it's actually just our team. And we just kind of talk to all of our partners. It's really rough. Everybody did it from home or different locations, and it's not super high quality. So we wanted to really seem authentic, but we just did, it's a probably 2.5-minute video, just letting people know that we miss them and that we're looking forward to coming back. And we just put that on our YouTube page, and we're going to put that on our weekly events email that goes out today. And then part of our overall core values of our organization. One of those is giving back. And so we're kicking off starting this Friday, a 3-week, every Friday, each week, a food drive at a different location. And we partnered with our local sports teams because they're not doing a whole lot of anything. And we have minor league baseball, minor league basketball, and minor league hockey here along with our university. And we're all partnering together, and we're going to do food drives for the emergency food bank, and that kicks off this week. And so we're excited about that. We're getting a lot of good media coverage on that. And I think it's just another way just to give back. But for some of our team, it's been great just to have them find a project they can wrap their arms around and do, because, you know, for some of our, like our sales team, it's a little frustrating that all we can do is, you know, plan to cancel events and not really wrap our arms around something. And our sports teams, you know, the reality in California, we're talking about professional sports not happening until 2021.
Wow.
And so, you know, we lost hockey and basketball mid-season. And of course, we should be in baseball season. So it gives them a chance to really wrap their arms around something and stay visible too.
Yeah, that's incredible. I didn't know about the video. I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm going to look that up and share that. That's great. I know several destinations have put together some really incredible videos, you know, very authentic. Last week we mentioned Visit Norfolk, which has been great, and several people have shared that. And I love that because it's such a great way to, you know, share the message of, you know, and a meaningful message at that, really, with the, you know, importance of tourism and what's happening, and it's great brand awareness. And the other thing you mentioned too, which I think was great, Wes, is you're talking about, you know, the idea of giving back. So that food drive is really fantastic. Gathan, you've got a similar initiative with Nourish Lexington. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how that's going? What have you seen in your community with regards to that so far?
Yeah, I think one of the things that that we did was, you know, when the whole pandemic hit our industry hard, we made a shift and a decision to say, how can we help support the tourism infrastructure of Lexington? And so we created Nourish Lexington, which is the work that we're doing along with several of our industry partners like Keeneland. There's a couple of family foundations, and the Bluegrass Community Foundation, which manages community-wide trusts. And so we set up this fund, and basically the initiative is really to help the hospitality workers who are currently laid off or furloughed or unemployed. They can actually come in and help prepare meals for families that are in need of immediate food and immediate food assistance. Then in exchange for preparing the food and delivering the food, they can work a 4-hour work shift and they can get paid up to $60. So they're still making money during their time off. The meals that we distribute are for hospitality industry families, also for like senior families and affordable housing communities, and then children, and then also at family resource centers. We distribute meals every Monday through Friday, 5:30 to 7 p.m. You can contribute in 5 ways. You can sign up to be a distribution center. So when we first started, we have a single A baseball team. That was one of the distribution centers where you could come by and pick up a meal. So distribution centers, you can work a shift, you can donate food, because there were a lot of restaurants who, you know, as Wes alluded to, that were severely impacted. So they might have had a lot of leftover food that they weren't going to cook, so they could actually donate that food. You can donate money. And then you can also provide your kitchen as well for us to come in and prepare food. So we started delivering meals 2 weeks ago. And so as of now, we've delivered I got the number this morning, 6,930 meals as of today. That's been delivered. 2,500 of those have been school lunches. Yeah, it's been very amazing.
That's incredible right there. Adam Johnson, great shout out there. Kind of disappointed Melissa isn't in a Mahomes jersey. I agree. That's right. You got some pride. You can still champion there. But Melissa, what have you guys seen kind of, you know, oh, no, not at all. What have you seen, though, there, you know, locally with regards to kind of how the community is banded together and supported in kind of these ways?
It's been positive, I think, just like most places. We actually created a t-shirt design here in Phoenix. My director of marketing spearheaded that along with our in-house graphic designer. So we were able to do that very efficiently. We created 3 t-shirt designs around the theme Together We Rise. Obviously, Phoenix is known for Phoenix is a rising bird from the ashes. So it unfortunately works well in this situation. But the money raised from those t-shirt sales is helping the local hospitality industry here. There's an organization that was founded locally here called Another Round, Another Rally. They've been in existence before this happened, but of course they've seen their requests skyrocket. They focus on bar and restaurant employees, providing financial grants to those workers. So we created the t-shirt, and then we partnered with some other local organizations, Local First Arizona, our downtown specific organization, the local Small Business Association, all helping to promote the sale of that t-shirt and the message of Together We Rise. So it's been heartwarming to see the community come together. Obviously, Phoenix and the state of Arizona rely heavily on tourism. So, it is the right thing to do to try to help our, friends and family that work in this business. So it's been great to see. That's the positive, I think, that comes out of a situation like this.
Yeah, we were talking earlier in the week, there's a lot of people who have considered, what this recovery is going to look like. Obviously, there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot nobody can really still predict to this point. Some think we maybe, have this type of curve or this type of, rebound or whatever it is. But certainly there's been some consensus that we think, our drive market and transient kind of markets will be maybe quicker to come back than others. And you were talking, Melissa, just about the unique challenge that presents you. And I think you're probably not alone, because there's a lot of other states that rely on great drive traffic, certainly, and destinations that rely on that kind of drive traffic. And what is that going to look like? How do we think about reaching them in new creative ways and stuff like that? So what are you guys thinking about as you're entering into a summer, which is probably typically much hotter for you than other destinations? How are you guys thinking and planning for that?
Yeah, we're a little flip-flopped, of course. This hit right during our absolute highest season. We host spring training here that was canceled mid-month. And obviously we're a strong resort destination, so they enjoy lots of visitors during the spring. The thing I think that will help us as we do come into summer, which is typically our low season, is that because it's a lower season for out-of-town visitors, our resorts have always marketed to locals, and our locals really understand what a staycation means. To them, it's truly like enjoying a hotel or resort in their own backyard. Our hotels typically offer better deals than they would obviously during high season. So we are hoping here that locals can help kind of jumpstart that maybe they'll be ready to visit local properties before travelers are. We're going to be looking, though, Southern California is our typical drive market. We've always targeted them in the summer, so we'll still plan to do that, but we're looking at the possibility that people will be willing to drive a little bit further, maybe this summer or this fall, than they normally would. If they're still going to be cautious about getting on a plane, they might consider a longer road trip than they would have in the past. So we may be able to kind of extend our reach in terms of drive market. So we're looking at all of those options right now, just like everybody else. We're trying to plan out phased media buys, phased messaging, and hopefully, it's true what they say that maybe by mid to late summer, there will be some confidence in doing some travel again. So, we're doing what everybody else is doing, just trying to make sure that we're ready for whenever it happens.
No, that's really good, and you bring up a lot of good points there. I want to kind of touch. We've got a great question from Amrita here about recovery campaigns, which you touched on, Wes. But what are you doing, Wes, and how are you leading your team in thinking about campaigns, recovery marketing campaigns, and any signals or like triggers that you're particularly looking at to kind of alert you as to which phase you may be in? Anything like that?
Really, our triggers are a lot of it's going to come from local government. It's going to be interesting to see because, our state, Melissa mentioned summer, and we're starting to get the sense that we may not have a summer this year in California. And the reality is the governor's even talking about starting school in July and August to make up for what's lost, which would mean it would cut into the summer vacation season for many families. And so I think, you know, we've always been a very kind of a hyper local organization anyway. We really focus on a very small region to provide most of our incremental room nights and visits to our city. And so I don't think for us there's a big strategy change, but we need California to move. We need their product to move around for tourism, because we just, you know, California is just a whirling bunch of visitors all the time, right? And we're 75 miles east of San Francisco, in between the coast and the national parks. And so we just have a lot of travel happening. And so we just work on getting our little piece of that pie. But if that pie is not happening, then we're not going to get our little piece. But we are definitely going to continue to focus locally. You know, we've always had this local push, Stockton has, and a lot of that comes from our, we have some image challenges. We're a 2-time Most Miserable City award winner for Forbes magazine.
2-time.
Yes, I don't even think, I think it's cool the second time.
Wow.
But so we've always had these image challenges, and we you know, for over a decade we've done things like Restaurant Week and Beer Week and Arts Week, and we do a Brew Fest, and a lot of it's just because if not us then who, but also a lot of it is this is how we ignite our own market, right? If we look at you know, recruiting businesses or workforce development or future residents, we say, you know, those people who want to move a business here want to move a business to a city that has a Restaurant Week and has an Arts Week.
Yep.
So, and we also see that translating into visitors. It may not be a product that they can enjoy, because a lot of those, I mean, most of those events honestly don't bring in visitation, but they add to the overall fabric and quality of a destination. And so that's why we do them. We also do a savings pass for our locals that we work with Bandwagon. And so it's not a traditional, like a pass that they're so good at that gets people, you know, it's for visitors. A lot of it's a coupon book for locals. So when we're looking at, you know, triggers, we're looking at focusing on the local economy first. How do we help and support businesses to get going again? How do we communicate with our residents when things are available and open to them, and try to drive traffic to those businesses that we see are struggling? But when it comes to external marketing, again, most of our marketing has been this 100-mile radius. That's primarily been what we do anyway. So I think we're going to also look at how we get our message in there when everybody else is going to be in our region focusing on the same thing, right? San Francisco is going to be focusing on the drive market now. You know, Napa, Sonoma, those are huge, very attractive drive markets, not to mention Lake Tahoe and maybe the national parks or the mountains. And so I think we're going to look for our niches there, which could be ag, outdoor, you know, recreation with our waterways. But it's going to be interesting to see, because again, we're going to be marketing in a space where everybody else is now going to be marketing in, and we only do interstate marketing. We don't market California the way it is. You don't really have 40 million people. I just need a little bit to move the needle here. So,
right.
You know, as I mentioned before, we're not in a terrible position right now, running occupancy in the mid-40s, which kind of shows that, you know, tourism is not what drives all of our hotel businesses. It what fills the top of, you know, the hotel business, but the baseline is, you know, a lot of corporate, a lot of business, and a lot of manufacturing and distribution. But for us, you know, we just ready for that to open up. In sports, we just need some youth sports to happen. And I'm really concerned that the way the governor's coming down, that we may lose a lot of our late summer room nights if we can't get some youth travel ball going and get the university going. So.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good stuff, and certainly I want to touch on, you know, the locals here in a minute. We've got some great comments, you know, in the chat for sure. Gathan, your horses are really well behaved, first of all, so thank you for bringing them into the chat today. And then I love the comments about the dogs here. This is fantastic. But you know, we've got a great, you know, we just want to touch back on this, because Wes, you do a great restaurant week, and we know that's a great service to your restaurant. So we got a couple different questions about, and everyone's thinking about this, you know, how do restaurants come back? How do they open? What does that look like? Certainly that's what the toolkit Streetsense published, it was all about, that I mentioned at the top of the hour. That is such a driver of the quality of life that you talk about, right? In all of our destinations, Easily one of the top 5 things we all do in all of our, sentiment surveys and everything else is looking for great places to eat, right? That is such a huge part of the travel experience. So with your restaurant week particularly, you've got a communication channel that, many destinations don't have. They don't have direct access to their restaurant partners and stuff like that the way that you do. Have you begun to put any kind of plans in place or communications with them to kind of help them come back, whether that's spacing, whether that's, ordering, anything operationally?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think that really helped us pivot quickly. I mean, we started our restaurant, our Dine Stockton, takeout and delivery promotion March 13th. Because of that restaurant week relationship, we were able to reach out really quick and say, restaurants, are you ready to do this? Because we know we can't drive traffic to your business anymore because of the state restrictions. And so I think that helped a ton. Our restaurant week is in January typically. So this Dine Stockton promotion where we have 140 restaurants, and we never come close to that, in restaurant week. But we really gonna have to look at how we do restaurant week, because we typically charge the restaurants $100 a pop to participate, and we can't be hitting them up in November with $100. So I think we're gonna look at that differently as more of a service to them this next year. But we have been communicating. We've been providing with all the resources, of course, because a lot of restaurants don't belong to associations where they're getting, CARES Act information or California, different things that are available here. So we've been providing that information and having very initial conversations with restaurants about opening back up, but many of them are just in a position that it's either all or nothing for them. Either they're going to maintain delivery and takeout, or they need to be opened up. But a lot of them, the half restaurant thing just doesn't work and doesn't provide the right environment or the right amount of revenue. And honestly, with the $600 kicker on unemployment, a lot of their employees are doing better not working than they would be working. So I think a lot of them are just very much a wait and see approach. But the longer it is, of course, we know they're not all going to return.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing. Our intelligence, and in partnership with CBRE, who owns 50% of Streetsense, is looking at this and going, operationally, it's a struggle when you think, if you can't, you're at 30, thinking you're going to come back 30%, or maybe 50%, but even at that rate, you're better off kind of being, staying closed for a little bit longer and trying to maintain the capital you have, because you can't reach any kind of margin to keep people employed and whatnot. And it's a very difficult situation. We're seeing it in a lot of destinations. We've also got another great question here about, partnerships, and you touched on that a little bit, Gathan. You have too, Melissa. I want to throw this to you. Is there any kind of partnerships that you're beginning to think through, whether that's, co-op programs with the state or any kind of in-state associations or with hotels? Is there any kind of, maybe, even there's a silver lining in this in some way? Has this opened up, communications with maybe some partners that you have not been able to work with in the past or anything like that? How's that kind of working with Phoenix right now?
We are definitely talking about cooperative programs. It's something we're membership based. It's something we've always tried to offer as part of our overall media plan every year. I'll be honest, most of our members have not in the past taken advantage of those opportunities. We try to create, a lot of digital opportunities, different price points. Don't see a lot of engagement with that. I have a feeling that's going to change this next round. So part of our recovery planning will involve creating some co-op programs. We've already had properties reaching out, and not even just properties, activities as well, that are saying, hey, what are you guys doing? We want to be a part of it. So I think they already understand the value of collaboration. We are, and for those of you that don't know, Visit Phoenix actually represents the entire metropolitan area of Phoenix, but we also have individual DMOs. So Scottsdale and Mesa and Tempe also have their own DMOs. We've always played well with them. I suspect that there'll be a lot more of that happening, especially when it comes to possible trade show presence. Nobody's going to have the money in the near future to participate at past levels, I don't think, in trade shows. So being able to go together with our local DMO partners, maybe even the state, for a more cohesive message, I think will be important. It will be a strong message. It will help save money. So those are options we're looking at. We're also have, asked the state about what co-op opportunities they might provide. Typically, our state agency focuses on the rural communities because they know that the metropolitan communities have strong budgets traditionally. So hopefully that will be expanded and we'll have more opportunity to work collaboratively with them. But I think that that's going to be the key to getting messaging out and participating in things that we've maybe traditionally done on our own is going to be to work with our local.
No, that's fantastic to hear. Gathan, what about you? Have there been new conversations around partnerships and co-ops? And then, you and I have had great conversations in years past about how you already work with your hotels and hotel properties. I think you do a great job there. How are you and your team thinking about that? Helping hotels and, thinking partnerships, whether that's from state, local, and beyond.
Yeah, we've started having those conversations. We actually have, when I'm off this at 2:00 today, we actually have our first strategic planning meeting of what our recovery efforts look like, and we've been having small conversations actually since probably the second week of March. Around March 16th, when this thing hit, we were kind of figuring out what we were going to do. And we already started kind of seeding those kind of conversations to have with our partners. And I think we're in a good position in Lexington where, all of our industry partners, even though we're non-member based, they're actually emailing us, different people on the staff, and saying, what does VisitLEX recommend that I do to open my business? And for us, that's gold, and it's like, while it makes our staff nervous that people are looking to us for that, I take it because I'm like, the fact that a restaurant or a hotel or whatever is looking to us for guidance is really important. And so our mayor, yesterday was our first, our mayor has put together a community task force of reopening the economy in Lexington. And so our president is one of the co-chairs, Mary Quinn Raymer. She's a co-chair there, and she's going to oversee how we reopen the visitor industry part of Lexington. And so our team, what I've tasked our team with today, we talked about it actually this morning on our team meeting call, was the various sectors that affect our industry, from attractions, bars, restaurants, breweries, tour guide operators. Like each person on the team is going to kind of do their own individual research of, like, if I'm a tour guide operator, what are the best practices that they can actually use as they reopen? And we're going to take all that, feed it to our president for the task force reopening stuff, because I was telling them, and I think Wes mentioned it too, like, the small businesses, they don't have access to the information that we have as a DMO.
Yep.
They don't, the national associations that represent the restaurants and the bars and the breweries, they don't have this kind of information, right? And so, but we do, and so it's our obligation to provide them with all that. So it's opened up a new door of opportunities and conversations. It's kind of further strengthened, I think, our relationship between the local community of how valuable tourism actually is, because they're now coming to us asking for advice on what to do next.
It's such a huge part of this conversation that I think, in the previous weeks, every week we get a panel of those, and it seems at some point there are common themes between what we end up talking about. And obviously it's hard. There's a lot that we're going through. Many on the calls, including maybe you guys, I don't know if you might want to speak to this directly too, have had to cut staff. There's a lot of people that are really suffering, and that's hard. We're very empathetic to that. But it also seems to be shifting some conversations toward opening up opportunities, right? The conversations that we are participating in, even that you described, Gathan, there, that we should be and maybe haven't been, right? And so I think that's really, really huge too. So to the question of maybe what to do, to what Gathan said, if you're on the call and you haven't participated in this, or you haven't, you're not sure if your city has got a task force like this, request to be on it or start it, right? Start those conversations, send those emails, ask for that. That's a great place to be. And even to Wes's point, positioning yourself in a way to be the leader and carry the message in this way for both locals and potential, visitors that would come, like Wes, you were talking about, those that look to create economic impact in our destinations, whether that's future businesses, future residents, we serve a vital place in that funnel, right, for longevity for all of our destinations. So those are all really, really, really good for us to think about. We got another question, Gathan. You know, we'll let you follow up with this one real quick. Is how did you set up the 800 number and get audio? How hard, easy was that to do? With Jenny says she just would love more detail. Maybe you guys can connect after the webinar too directly about that too.
Yeah, I can tell you two simple things. There's a service called Freedom Voice, so FREEDOM Voice. That's how we secure the 800 number. And then we use a service called Twilio, TWILIO, to set up the voice recording. And we made up every recording on there. Like, we just sat around, thought about the sounds of Lexington, and that's what we landed on. So that's where we started from.
I love Twilio. Twilio is a great tool, great tool. So Melissa, would you, we got a couple questions for anyone who has had to cut staff, and maybe Wes, certainly any of them, for anyone who's had to cut staff, how are you adjusting, and what are you focusing on now as a marketing team?
Well, I'll jump in on that real quick, and it's kind of a little bit of the reverse of what you asked. We've been very fortunate in our organization. I'm very grateful that we have not cut staff. But that has given us the ability to actually help our members who have had to cut staff. So I'll give a shout out to our sales team. We are a large meetings destination. So not only are we, I know primarily here we've been talking about leisure, but in Phoenix, meetings are extremely important, both citywides and resort meetings. Some members of our sales team have been able to help the hotel and resort properties supplement some of their staff by helping them. Leads are still coming in. I think the positive story there is that there are still meeting planners that are reaching out with leads, looking at future events and meetings. But you know, some of our properties might be down right now to 1 or 2 salespeople. So our team's been able to jump in and help supplement that and help them follow up on leads, just to make sure those things aren't getting caught or lost, or that somebody's missing an opportunity. So I would say we're kind of the reverse of that. And, you know, we're same thing though. We've been, you know, we're trying to push all of the messages that we can for our member organizations, the dining, the virtual tours. So just my marketing team's been very busy, maybe even busier than usual, just trying to generate things as quickly as we possibly can.
Wes, how about you?
We've been fortunate too, like Melissa. Right now, we have not had to make any staff adjustments. You know, that's only as good as the next TMD check. You know, and that's what we're kind of going to. Every 90 days, we get our revenue, and we make decisions based on that. So right now, we're comfortable that we'll be able to maintain. But the reality is we couldn't do all of this local outreach and maintain our dining program and continuing to create messaging and do outreach without people. And so, you know, I'm thankful for that, but I think we all realize that, you know, the longer this goes, and I know obviously there are many states on this call who are opening back up, which is mind-boggling when you're in California. But you know, the longer this goes, it means the slower the recovery will be. And so, yeah, it's a real concern. But I think the big thing for us is just keeping staff busy and trying to watch out for their mental health. You know, I think, you know, I feel like some days I work more than I do normally, because I don't get the water cooler talk. I don't get people walking in the office. I don't get the rent. You know, I'm all the distractions are gone. And so I don't think we take enough time for ourselves, and we can get a little intense. And I know I've talked to a lot of my peers. There's definitely some, you know, down days where people really, really feel like they don't want to do anything today. They're done. I think it's just there's definitely a lot to be said about keeping your team's mental health going. So it's tough.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. We've talked about that a little bit, but probably not enough. I think that's, you know, I know with our clients at Streetsense, we are having conversations around the impact of virtual business, right? And how do we still think about fostering healthy conversations with our customers and our audience, and certainly positioning the brands that we work with in a way in which they're continuing to earn that trust, right? And continuing to seed the message so that whatever that new normal specifically looks like in that context, whether that's a region, place, destination, resort, or whatever, we've got some ability to invite them to come back and visit, and they know that they can trust that message, that in fact we'll be ready for them. You know what I mean? And here's the things that we've put in place to be ready for them, et cetera, right? Which is another thing we were talking about is, you know, how do we handle the ideas around what we do with visitor guides, right? With the visitor guide planning, selling ads, certainly, and there's a whole you know, continuum that we do there, whether we fully fund it through ad sales or whatever. You know, every destination is slightly different, but maybe we start there, because that certainly is going to have an impact on our partners, whether we're member-based or not, right? With regards to that. So how are you guys thinking about that in recovery now? Maybe Gathan, we'll start with you, and just we'll go from there.
Yeah, we actually talked about this yesterday, and I think we're actually going to make the decision actually not to do a visitor guide this year. So we shifted probably I think this is our 2 years ago, we shifted our visitor guide from being a traditional guide to being a inspiration guide. So it was all just heavy imagery, very minimal copy. No ads at all. Lexington has never had ad sales in their visitor's guide. It's always been fully funded by the DMO. And so we kept it that way because we can control everything that's in there, and we like it that way. But we were actually talking about it. And so our goal, because there's so many uncertainties right now coming out of it, like we normally release the visitor's guide. We start working on it now. It comes out in January and lasts us for the calendar year. But there's going to be so much uncertainty right now of what restaurants, bars, attractions, whatever partners are actually going to be open. Like it's hard to print anything in this environment. We're fortunate that we started a website project last July that we're launching our new website the first week of July. So we're going to find some way to still do an inspiration guide, but it'll all be digital. Obviously, it'll all be online, and it'll be something that we can actually change when it needs to be changed. But most of the big print projects we have, which is in our inspiration guide and a dining guide that we do, we're probably going to move those to all digital for the next year.
Makes sense. Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, so definitely a hot topic for us as well. I wish I had the perfect answer for everybody, but we're right now discussing various scenarios of how that might look. We're the same thing. Like, we were in those very initial processes with the guide. Normally we would launch a new guide with the beginning of a calendar year. Our book we do not do it in-house. We work with an outside partner. It relies heavily on advertising from our members, which of course we understand that the dollars just may not be there for them. So that's one concern. You know, the other concern, as Gathan alluded to, is, you know, our business is going to be open. It's hard enough when you do a print guide to know that, you know, you can always count on a handful of maybe the restaurants at least that you feature might not be around by the time the book is printed. That's likely to be a much bigger challenge right now. A recent conversation we had too was about what will guide distribution look like. We obviously, our website accounts for a decent number of guides that we distribute, but, you know, they're also distributed at our airport. They're distributed at our hotels and visitor centers and things like that. And so I think it remains to be seen what might happen with that. You know, if a piece of collateral is considered high touch that multiple people might be picking up and touching, especially if it's a book that's left in a hotel room, and you know, some hotels have said they're going to remove those types of things. You know, it changes kind of what the distribution of that looks like. So again, sorry, I don't have like this great answer to it, but I think we're just like everybody else, having the conversation, looking for input from other destinations to kind of see how everybody's handling it, so that, you know, we do the right thing. But yeah, it's a tough call. Just discussions we've not ever had to have before. So.
Right. No, totally. Wes, what about you? How are you guys? I know you have a lot of great distribution too locally. So how is this kind of impacting what you think?
We definitely distribute the majority of our 45,000 visitor guides locally. It's definitely an in-market piece, primarily through hotels and the university and other attractions and events. So like Melissa said, these high-touch publications or things in rooms, we're just not, it can't be an in-room piece. It's probably not going to be in the lobby. So and we just printed it in January, and here we are in April. So I would imagine that we're going to have about 2 years worth of visitor guides.
Wow.
So to Gathan's point, we may not have to print it. I mean, it may not even have to be a choice. We'll have something. It may not be accurate, or it's as accurate as it was the day it was printed anyway. But so, and also it's done in-house 100%. So we have a full-time graphic designer, and we sell all the ads, and it actually makes a little bit of revenue, but we consider it revenue neutral. So yeah, I think to Gathan's point, and what we were talking about, the new term in our advocacy meeting yesterday, it's kind of like, it's not the new normal, it's like the next normal, right? And maybe this is one of the, we've talked forever about physical guides, and there definitely is value in them. And I think the research shows that they do can extend stay, you know, expand the spend and inspire people, but this could be that time where people don't want to touch stuff like that, especially ones that are left in rooms. I mean, rooms are bad enough, right? So I think that's a great conversation that we'll be having very soon, but we obviously can't, it makes absolutely no sense to reach out and ask people, our hotels or our restaurants, to buy advertising. It's just not going to happen in 20, and it's not going to happen probably in 21. So I think it's a great conversation to look at the digital. We may also look at something just a lot less expensive that we eat the cost on. Maybe it's a rack style brochure, a trifold that we can just have out there for those people who want something, your top 10, your top 20 things to do. Maybe we focus that way on a very low cost model that we don't worry about the disposableness, since our guides are about $1 a piece, you know, and 50 cents a piece, I guess. So that's probably another avenue we'll be looking at. But and then, you know, digital obviously is where we want to go with everything. It's just that tactile piece. Obviously, we had expanded our print this year. People go through them.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing with them.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah, those are all good points. We had a really good kind of future thinking question from Kylie. Just kind of thinking ahead with uncertain predictions of how this whole COVID thing is going to affect in the fall. How might it affect us in the fall and the winter? Are you currently building that into your recovery plan? Should we go through this again the next season? Does anyone want to jump in on that?
That's a great question. What, Gathan, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it honestly is something that's always in the back of my mind. And it's, you know, I talk about it amongst our friends, and we talk about how all the states have their own restrictions in place of when you can actually get out. Our governor in Kentucky, he basically says if anybody goes out, he wants everybody to be wearing a mask anytime you're out and about. And so now you're trying to figure out who's going to do what, who's going to wear a mask. And you look at the people going to the beaches in California and Florida, and it's really understanding that people are going to do whatever they want to do anyway. And so I think what's going to happen is everything's going to open back up. There's going to be another wave of infections. I mean, it's inevitable, right? And I think that's a reality that we have to face. And so from a budget standpoint, you know, we've talked about what our marketing budget actually looks like, which is basically zero for the next fiscal year. I mean, we're in July to June fiscal year, and it's like, I'm like, I don't know what kind of money I'm going to have, but a lot of the money that we are having, we're actually thinking about having a conversation really around, do we just delay that for the rest of this year? Because if that second wave comes back in and the economy shut back down, or the states shut back down again in the fall and the winter, I still want to have some type of money, some type of cash flow to still be able to pay staff and do whatever we need to be doing. So we've talked about kind of deferring some of those media dollars to further into the fiscal year, and not necessarily having to come out in the beginning of the fiscal year with a hardcore full-on media spend, because we might need that at the back end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, it's just, I think at this point in time, we know that different industries that all feed into the hospitality, the travel and tourism space for our definitions operate on different margins. And so one thing Streetsense has been, kind of preparing and helping our, not just our clients, but the industry think about is capital management. I mean, that is going to be a really key thing to be thinking about, reserves, cash reserves, whatever you can do for your individual business. And so that's certainly important. We certainly don't have enough time, unfortunately, to get to all these great questions and comments. So Melissa and Wes, Gathan, if y'all would drop your email, in the chat there for everybody, because some of them were great for you guys, and so they can follow up directly with you. But we do have great conversations continuing to happen right back in the next following weeks. I know we've got next week is going to be a really, really great webinar with right, Jade Brodus from Travel Mindset, Kristen Luna from Media and Grits Conference, and Maxie from Visit Franklin, which is, you know, all going to be centered around how do we think and leverage influencers? What is it going to look like to influence travel, right? Essentially, in a new normal post-COVID and whatever. So that's going to be a fantastic conversation. And if you haven't registered for that, feel free to do that. You can reach me directly, jcollins@streetsense.com, if I can help in any way, shape, or form. And again, Melissa, Wes, Gathan, thanks so much for being with us. Thanks for sitting in and joining. Any closing thoughts, anyone?
I'd say thank y'all for tuning in. You know, hopefully everybody can fight through this situation together. You know, in the words of our governor, he says it at the beginning of his press conference. At the end of it, he always says, "We're going to get through this, and we're going to get through this together." So those will be my ending words from the governor.
Yes. Boom! I love it. That's good right there.
And to that point, you know, I think the together part that Gathan brings up, I mean, I think we're learning so much, as we always do, from our own industry, but the creativity that's coming out there, and it's keeping us all inspired. And I'm glad that we continue to share. And I think that you're going to see that more and more. But I just think it's great that we're all so resilient and we're all so creative, even in the worst of times. And so I look forward to working with everybody on the next phase.
I echo those sentiments, and I think that together part is really showing right now. People have been so willing to share ideas. I think that's been one of the great things to come out of this. We've always shared with each other in our industry, but you know, I will admit I've borrowed a few ideas that other destinations have been doing, and you know, I think it's great that everybody's being so open because you know, we're all trying to do the same thing, and it's just been really heartwarming to see everybody kind of come together and be open and willing to help each other out.
That even goes to the vendor side too. I mean, all the data vendors, and of course, like with Streetsense and your relaunch plan. I mean, the stuff that because I mean, every time I have to make a phone call and cancel a contract, I understand that there's a commission behind that, and I get it, and I feel terrible for these vendors who are in this vertical solely, but they're doing great work right now and being very generous, and I'm super thankful for that, especially from a bureau with a smaller budget.
No, that's fantastic. That definitely deserves a shout out to the Arrivalist tracker, the Adara tracker, and others, right? I mean, certainly what Amir is doing with Longwoods and his sentiment surveys. I mean, a lot of really great stuff. So this has been great. Becca, any closing thoughts for us?
Just as a reminder, in the spirit of travel, check out ustravel.org and check out their toolkit just to help prepare you for next week's National Travel and Tourism Week. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of this week, and we'll all celebrate even more next week. So we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks,
see you later.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.